Yeah, you look good. Good. Yeah, absolutely. Start with a bang. So good afternoon for anyone who's logging into, from the UK and probably, most of Central, CET time, as I've discovered. Good evening for anyone who's logging in from India. I know that there'll be some people tuning in. It's around 6:30 there. I've got my international clock up. And then good morning to anyone who's across the pond over in the United States. I think it's around 9 a.m. in New York. And welcome, everybody, to the show that we have got today with Mr. Pete Campbell. Pete, do you want to
Good day. Yeah, hello, hi. Welcome to cloudy London. I don't know.
Absolutely, guys. So as you can see from our magician behind the keys, we've got Anton, who is asking us to, of course, ask you, let us know where you're tuning in from. MPH Marketing Solutions. I would love to find out where you guys are, what part of the world. We as what are you? Good morning. Yeah, are you in London right now, Pete? Where exactly are you, Pete?
Yeah, so I live in northeast London in Walthamstow. So our office is based in the city. Well, not anymore. I ended up turning it into a storage unit yesterday. So this is the Kaizen office.
Absolutely.
6 years of running an agency, and I've managed to grow it from my bedroom to my bedroom. It's
Well, listen, I think that's a story for a lot of people right now, and we'll come to that. So Simranjeet, hello. Mr. Simranjeet Baraj, where in the world are you at the moment? What country? What city? Be great, guys. Hey, MPH, Detroit, Michigan. I'd love to hear what you all do for work as well. It'd be great to hear. Basically, of course, we've got your name, unless you're using a spoof name, the country and the city that you're in, as well as what you do for a living. Hey, David, how you doing, buddy? Let us know where you're in. Where in the UK you are. Jeff, what's up, my friend? Where in Canada are you? I know Toronto, Quebec, and a couple of other cities. After that, I'm out of the way. Results marketing. Now, there's a name that I like to see. Let us know where you're from as well. You said that. Rather, let us know what. Well, you told us actually. Denver, Colorado, United States. Got it in one. Simranjeet, you're from Mumbai. So we've got what? We've got India. We've got the United States. We've got the UK. We've got Canada. We've got Pranab, who's just logged in. We've got David's from customer acquisition agency, Red Hot Penny. Nice name, David. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
I've done a bit of training for some of David's team before, actually, digital PR. Good outfit. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Well, good to see you, David. You're going to have lots of lessons given to all of us, I think, from Pete today. Paul, how are you doing, sir? Paul is a Semrush regular. He comes to, I'm sure, have a laugh at me. Make a buffoon of myself on the show. We've got Frederick from Ottawa, Canada. Brilliant. Frederick, let us know what you do, my friend. We've also got Anton. I'm so impressed by how quickly you get the actual screens up. There's no cheating here, guys. I'm just jumping. And Anton's like a magician.
Yeah. It's like an American television show, you know?
Yeah.
I'll be baking a lasagna in about 30 minutes.
Exactly. So Nitish, you're from Bangalore. Let us know what you do, Nitish. Wisdom Marketing Solutions. We've got Trevor from Stillwater. Is MN Maine? Let us know, Trevor. It probably is Maine, to be honest with you. Let us know what you do as well, Trevor. It'd be great to hear from you. Chris from Atlanta, Georgia. What's up, Chris? How you doing? We've got Choice. Okay. So Choice Business Loans. This is a pretty good one. I think you're spoofing me. You train elephants for circus work.
Well, I know Sean at Choice Business Loans very well over the years. He was one of the first people to give me a go at starting an agency, interestingly. And he does actually train elephants alongside offering business loans.
Oh, really? Okay, all right. I thought you were trolling us, guys.
You might be, yeah. It's a diverse, and entrepreneurs are a diverse bunch. So
brilliant. So Trevor, agency owner. Chris, founder of Captivate Search Marketing. So guys, we're going to, just so you know, be starting in 1 or 2 more minutes. I see that people are still coming in, so we'll give you a couple of more minutes. So we've got Mike from BKK. I presume that's so we've got Paul from Leeds, who runs an agency. I'm assuming SEO is part of that. Mike, let us know what you do, sir, out there in Bangkok, Thailand. I'm guessing probably a much sunnier place to be than London right now. Who else have we got? Mo. As well, we'll come to you, Mo. Sumitendra. If I pronounce that, give me a high five. Right, that was I was impressed with myself there. Mo from Bangladesh. We work together. I know Mo very well in the affiliate space. He is. And then we've got who else? Anna. So South Africa. We've got our first South African in the building. So Annalicia, nice name, Annalicia. So you've got an SEO agency out in South Africa. So brilliant, guys. Thank you for telling us where in the world you're from. We have officially reached the actual 5-minute mark. So now it's time to, as they say, lock and load. Hey Neil, what's up? We've got another person from from South Africa. Let us know where in South Africa you're from, Annalicia. We know that Neil's from Cape Town. Neil, agency owner, perhaps. Do let us know. And then finally, the final person, we've got Anukriti, I think, from Noida. I don't actually know where Noida in India is. Pete, do you know where Noida is? I've got. Yeah. Hey,
sorry, mate.
Sometimes I meet fairer skinned people than myself who are better traveled. Yeah. No India better than I do.
Nothing to do with that. My geography skills are. Yeah. You got a whole map behind you. Why am I on the spot? You know.
That's true. I thought you'd be looking. Joburg. Brilliant. And Neil, you've got an agency, Light Brigade. Nice name, by the way, Neil Gillette. Annalicia, good to hear that you're from Joburg. So everybody, welcome to the show that we've got with Pete Reis-Campbell of Kaizen. They are an SEO first as well as PR agency, probably a couple of other things which Pete will go on to explain, that are based out of London here in the UK. And today we're going to be talking ultimately about the dark side of agency life. We got a bit Star Wars and Jedi on you, and what we're going to be going through, what Pete's going to be taking us through is a couple of things, guys, just so you know what to expect. The first thing, you're going to hear a little bit about who is Pete Reis-Campbell, who are Kaizen, if you're wondering. I've never heard of these guys. We're going to explain a little bit about that. And then we're going to move into some of the challenges and the interesting parts of Pete's journey, to include, but not limited to, it sounds like a deal that we're brokering, doesn't it? Challenges with clients who sometimes refuse to actually process payments that are due, dealing with issues of actual, criminals targeting agency staff, and also the challenges, to include the loneliness and sometimes depression of being an agency owner. For you people that are agency owners, you know how tough it is. It's exciting and it's great. It's tough. So we're going to be going through all of those things. So throughout the webinar, please do ask any question that you've got. Of course, it's agency related or Pete Reis-Campbell related, that you've got about growth, about challenges, about cash flow, about operations, whatever it may be. And we'll be jumping into those questions in and out as we go through the webinar. But first, we begin with finding out a little bit more about Pete Reis-Campbell. So,
all right,
Pete, who are you?
A bloke in a computer. At the moment, the present version is that I run a team of 25 people. 90% of our revenue comes through doing link building for SEO purposes. And we're sort of 5 years in that journey. Our revenue last year was 1.5 million. We're on track to smash that this year as well, but it's been a little bit ruined in the past couple of months with coronavirus stuff. And then the past really is, I got my start building websites as a kid. I learned HTML when I was like 12, 13. As a result of that, I learned to make a little bit of money off the internet, even though I was making websites about like The Simpsons and just like video games that I liked. Those two interests are still very big parts of my life. I literally came from watching an episode of The Simpsons on Disney Plus straight into this. And I'm getting for a remake of a Final Fantasy game, playing Animal Crossing on the Switch at the minute. So, I've always built, most of my life is revolved around learning skills that focus around my passions. And then I stumbled along how to make money on it along the way. So 15, 16, I got a sense of what AdWords was, what affiliate marketing was, what SEO was. Landed a job at an agency up in Leicester, where I'm from. Mm-hmm. And essentially they were launching an SEO department, largely serving small, medium business customers, trying to get them to rank for like Plumber Leicester and so on and so forth. And that's, I guess, the summary of it. I'm the only owner of the business. I have a managing director now. That's been a massive help in the past year in terms of growth. But yeah, I guess a lot of the journey has been the past 6 years, where it's went from me sitting on this chair on a desk similar to this, growing into a nice fancy office, and then all the way crashing back down to here while obviously the world is a little bit on pause. But
listen, it sounds like it's been an amazing journey. It's good to hear the Simpsons and the gaming. I've got I think a zombie game that I've downloaded on my Android because I was actually trying to install Championship Manager. If anyone remembers Championship Manager on my Mac, and it doesn't work, so that's what I've been playing recently, guys. Survival State, I think it's called. So that's good to hear. And talk to us now about how you landed in SEO, and when that decision came to start an agency and to grow it and to scale it.
Yeah. In the simplest sense, it was when I was a kid making my websites. I wanted to understand how to get more traffic from Google. I just Googled how the hell do you do that, and landed upon Moz as a first point of a call. But the whole actual business side is I was a web designer. I had a job paying 13 grand a year as a web designer. They were launching an SEO team, and I was seeing that small businesses could rank to the top of Google and make a lot of money off it. So while landing a couple of SEO jobs, both in-house and agency side, I started on the side doing freelance SEO training, basically. So I maintained a blog. I used to post up tips and tricks from the SEO industry, a fair bit of networking. So I became a bit annoying to all the sort of big agency leader types. I'd get on their radar. I'd go to conferences like Brighton SEO, and basically I offered freelance SEO work for cheap. I did it for £15-20 an hour, alongside a full-time job where I was running SEO accounts for large corporates. So, those big brand names on my shelf were really appealing to folks when they wanted to use me from a freelance SEO point of view. So I was working full-time 9 to 5. And then essentially on the evenings and weekends, I was doing a bit of freelance SEO work, making a couple of £100 a month. Got to a point where I was making about £1,000 a month. And then I thought, okay, maybe I should give this a little go, really. Saved up 3 months worth of rent, saved up about 5 grand worth of rent. That was the deal that I struck with my then girlfriend, now wife at the time. She says that you can go and start your own business, provided that you can cover your rent for 3 months.
Yeah.
And very kindly, the agency I used to be at, iProspect, they offered me to come back as a contractor if needs be. So I had a very nice, relatively secure position. But most importantly, I'd been freelancing for 2 years. So I'd already started to learn sort of the basics of business, really. And I just had a bit of a coming out party. I just sort of announced I was going to launch my own agency. And very thankfully, some of my agency sort of people in my network started to introduce me to a couple of folks. And from that, I was able to turn it from a couple of £100 a month to a 5 grand business a month within that first sort of month, really. We ended up doing about 100 grand in our first year. But it was all me. It was self-taught. I taught SEO myself.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. What time what year was that you made the transition from freelancing, from being, I guess, part of an agency to building your own career?
First week of January 2014, so just over 6 years ago now. But
okay. And it's very briefly. I know that this is a bit of an aside. And guys, I see some of the questions you've got, Katie, and Kijar, as well as others. Please keep asking any questions that you've got. Going from £1,000 month to £100,000 month, right? It's a big switch. What would you very briefly, for those who are perhaps interested in that part, would you say are the top 3 things that you think have been pivotal in achieving that kind of growth before we begin to go into some of the challenges that you faced? Sure.
Biggest growth curve has come from, I'd say, increasing prices after about a couple of years, but also just through sector focus. So finance and travel are the 2 big focuses for Kaizen. Sean at Choice Loans is in this webinar. He's one of my first clients, and because of the fact that I did work with him, it referred me on to other businesses. And at the same time, I was able to use that as a case study to then knock on a business slightly higher. So I always chain it up, So I went from Choice Loans to a business called TotallyMoney.com. That then got me in front of MoneySupermarket.com. That got me in front of Compare the Market. And it's that sort of step by step, I'd say, is probably the pivotal thing. So I guess that's
And then did you, for example, in the Compare the Market to the Money Supermarket, did you take the case study and then just approach them directly? Or
relatively so. Yeah, it's there's a lot about aggressive outbound sales. Is the way that we've been doing it, if I'm honest. It's
brilliant. Yeah, and that's quite an interesting area, because I don't think that, thinking about the other people that we had on the show, that not everybody's talked about the aggressive outbound approach. So in your instance, could you qualify what you mean by the outbound aggressive approach for the guys here who are the agency owners?
Sure. So, I mean, largely we take an existing client that we're working on, and then we map out similar prospects, basically, of either like for likes or ones that are just slightly sized bigger businesses. We wrap that up in a case study, and then essentially we go through their LinkedIn, through LinkedIn Sales Navigator. We map out the contacts that work within that business, and then essentially we'll email them and call them and try and have an initial setup approach. Or if for a more value-based sale, we'll essentially do events. So we do like a roundtable style event. So we'll host one on like finance, and then we'll invite a couple of existing clients and then other like-for-like brands into that room. And it'll be like a sharing, like this webinar, but sharing between 8 in-house SEO people. So we do a lot of in-house SEO sort of roundtables, really. And that's been a really effective sort of value-based approach to sales. Okay. I'm not really one for cold calls in terms of like, it's quite aggressive. But I am one for like, here's a thing, come to this thing, you'll get value out of it, we'll get value out of it, because you might want to have a coffee with us afterwards.
Okay, brilliant. So it sounds like there's been an account-based marketing style approach from the LinkedIn and the email follow-up in combination with some round tables where you would identify SEOs within similar type organizations and then invite them to a closed event, effectively, where you do a lunch or something, or Brilliant, guys. So I think that's two things. Thinking about the people that I've asked that we've not covered. So that's really, it's really useful to hear that that there are SEOs out there that are growing their agency in that way, because there's sales guys that are nodding their heads in approval right now. So let's go into some of the quick questions that we've got here that I want to ask before we segue into the questions within the actual webinar. So one of the questions that have been asked, and it's quite a good one. So Anandja, I don't know how to pronounce your name, Anand, but what do you do when clients ask for a kind of ROI or an outcome-based approach? What's your approach in situations where you feel ultimately, I guess what he's asking, what do I do when the client is asking me something that's unrealistic?
I mean, it's finding the middle ground. I mean, about 2-3 years ago, we introduced an approach where we essentially forecasted the level of coverage we can get for a client in terms of like PR coverage. You got to understand 90% of what we do is link building, and 90% of how we do that is create content and then get it in newspapers, essentially. So we gave a sense of, we think over the course of 6 months, we'll be able to get you X number of links or X number of pieces of coverage. If we fail to hit that goal, we'll essentially replace the pieces of content we're doing free of charge to make sure you hit that goal. So it's a quid pro quo on both ends. It comes from a place of confidence. Most people you should offer a guarantee you can hit. That's the main important thing. It's obviously, like, I would never go, we can guarantee position 1. You can't. You can only guarantee stuff that's in your relative control, that knowing if you're going to do a piece of content for link building doesn't work, I can just do another one, and that's an easy way to do it. So that's how we do it, really. We look at the success we've achieved in the past and pop a guarantee on that, and that's a lesson that comes from Traction, the Gino Wickman book.
Okay, guys. So that's I think that's amazing advice. Like, offer guarantees that that you can deliver upon, even in the instance that you don't deliver on the first initiative. Have something that's probably there as a backup to make sure that the client gets the same or a very similar outcome. And once you've delivered that outcome, package it into a case study. Go after similar levels or slightly bigger businesses and show them what you've achieved. So another question that actually, I think Katie asked, Katie Thomas, she asked a question about employees. So her question was about, do you have a process for hiring new employees and ensuring a cultural fit? Well, I'd love to get some of your answers on that.
Sure. I can't say that it's a scientific approach. A lot of it comes from gut. Over 5 years, but it's easier to say now in hindsight. But I'd say even when we hire people, we definitely get it wrong 30% of the time. It's 2 interviews on a good litmus test. Largely, what we look for in SEO folk is some sort of sense of portfolio. It's past achievements. And largely in our space, content that they've made before. Ways in which they've self-published themselves online. If you're going to be successful in PR, you've got to be pretty good at social media, and you've also got to have maybe done some freelance journalism work. Those are the 2 criteria I look for, because it shows a bit of hustle. It shows that I like this thing. I went out of my way to go to this publisher and convince them to let me write on the subject. It's a sense of proactivity. We have a list of core values, which is proactivity is probably the biggest thing that I've seen out of my most successful employees, where you give them a guiding hand, but you don't spell it out for them. And it's the proactive ones that have grown into the best employees. And it's just asking for senses of that proactivity. And a problem that they had, that they came up with a solution themselves, and then they went ahead and implemented it. You know, that can be just as simple as sorting out the T run every week. You know, it doesn't matter if it's anything to do with SEO. But I'd say that's the underlying quality. Yeah. And then second to that is just they love the area that they work in, and they've demonstrated it through social and through their own stuff.
I think it makes a lot of sense. You know, I think that what you've outlined, one being ultimately, you know, does this individual practice what they preach? Is there evidence of track record? Is there public evidence that you can verify via social media of track record? What level of experience do they have, whether within an agency framework or independently? And independently can demonstrate a lot of passion, which isn't necessarily always the same when someone's underneath an agency structure. Guys, if you are enjoying the webinar, give it a like. Hit the subscribe button, all of that good stuff. Thank you for that, Anton. It's a good reminder, actually. And I think that the other element of it, of course, that he was referring to is it's guys hustle, proactivity, and it's something that's actually easy enough to spot. It's you know, going a little bit beyond, and that could be even, you know, a classic example that I enjoy when we go through a hiring process at Pearl Lemon is not just stopping when you encounter a problem, but making some level of assumption as to this is what I thought was the best outcome, therefore I continued, or pausing that and moving on to something else that you think is of the value, even when, you know, you haven't been given a specific task. So there's many examples of hustle, as Pete outlined, and I think that they're two excellent points. And talking about the process of hiring, Katie asked another question, which was you mentioned the number, that 25 employees, and she was asking, is that full-time employees? Is that combination contract?
So when I use employee numbers, I refer to full-time. We do have a couple of people on furlough at the minute, so to be clear, so that's like 22 right this second who are actually doing work right now. And then we use maybe 5 other contractors to fulfill largely design work and sometimes freelance PR work.
Okay, brilliant. So there you go, guys. 22 right now, 3 that are furloughed, and then probably another 5 to 7 that do different levels of part-time work. So guys, keep the Nitish. Nitish, you just said thank you for not answering your question. I want to put that up on the screen. I want to put that up on the screen, Anton, because I just want to say, Nitish, the only reason I did not answer that specific question was because I want to keep all of the questions agency-centric, guys. So your question is a good one. How do you increase website users organically? But that one, there are lots of amazing webinars that are part of Semrush that you can definitely tune into. So stay tuned. But please keep the questions agency or Kaizen or Pete Reis centric. So let's go into some of the, stay with us, Nitish. I hope we haven't lost you, and keep some other questions being asked about your agency or about your freelancing career. The dark side of agency life.
Right.
So let's go through some of these things one by one. Now, sure. I want to talk about the challenges that you've had, or the specific journey of what happened when you had a client that refused to pay a rather large bill, and kind of, you know, what happened, and just to talk us through that journey. So what went on in that case?
Sure. So it was a client we were working with for about 6 months, referred to us from another agency. And it was largely actually SEO work, link building was the full element of that. And essentially they weren't happy with our level of service, was the view that they were giving. And essentially the first sort of note came saying they wanted to terminate out their contract, and we had 3 months of that contract left. And I said, well, we need to adhere to that contract. They said no. And on top of that, we're not going to pay the 2 months of outstanding bills that we owe you, which total up to about £25,000. And if you chase us on it, well, then we'll essentially look to bring a professional indemnity case against you, outlining the long list of ways in which essentially you've damaged our business and our brand. And the challenge of SEO, as you know, is that it's so goddamn subjective. What really quantifies as good work versus bad work? You know, you could have 2 SEO experts ask the same question, polar opposite answers. You know, so essentially, we got the mail was this dossier of how essentially our work was so damaging that it caused the business to potentially lose over £1 million of revenue on their end, and essentially it listed like how the 1 month. The traffic said that it was a split of non-brand versus one brand, and they had a separate agency to do that report, and they got a different outcome to us. And that's how it was produced. They hired another SEO agency to essentially pull together a list of SEO recommendations of what's wrong with their website, which are the same recommendations that we had. It's just there's a difference, as you know, when you work with big corporate clients. You can do this and the cows come home. You're getting paid tens of thousands of pounds a month to give them advice, but maybe they'll only implement or act upon 5% of it. And even then you're working in a particular order. Anyway, the point was that it was 25 grand of debt that we can afford to solve, really. And for me, I was, and this is like a big business that are coming down on us. And my first part was to do due diligence. I actually called up the last two agencies that worked with them. And they both told me that they both did the exact same thing. So they have a habit, basically, of going from agency to agency, signing any contract, working with them for 6 months, and then essentially they'll negotiate a better price with another agency that's cheaper. They'll go, oh, this agency's doing all this for 5 grand. Will you do it for 2 grand? New agency says yes, and the cycle just continues. And then they get out of paying like months of bills by threatening a lawsuit. Because the company in particular, so this is in the, I should say, it's like in the health beauty space.
Okay.
They were largely run by lawyers, used to customers of theirs potentially bringing lawsuits against them. So therefore, they had very rigorous legal mechanisms of essentially avoiding unpaid bills. Yeah. And when you've got me, an agency of 20 people versus a multi-million-pound business, like how am I going to be able to raise the funds and proceed for a 3-year professional indemnity case? You know, it's built in a way that obviously means that the only choice for me is to walk away, you know? Yeah. But for me, it was like a matter of principle. Like, how can I let these companies just trash us about? And there's no vetting process. How could I avoid that problem in the future? Yeah. Yeah. That was the big part of it, really.
Wow. Please. So what happened in the instance? Did you decide to kind of let it go, or what did you do in the end?
Well, my first approach was anger, and me and one of my colleagues, we prepared like a response to every single bullet point going in through the ins and outs of SEO, why we made the choices we made. I consulted that with lawyers that I arranged through insurance, and I think that's what actually changed all this, really. So I can't give enough shout out to Hiscox, the professional annuity insurer that we use. They arranged me like a marketing specialist law firm straight away. They're called DWF Law, and I'd really recommend them if you ever need to use them. And essentially, they said you can proceed it if you want, but it might cost you up to £1 million legal fees. And I wasn't willing to put my whole business at risk, but I was scared that they would continue with the case anyway. And then when I rang the other agency owners and they said, yeah, we've been through this, exact same thing happened, it gave me the confidence that it was just a threat, basically, more than anything else, to get a way in which they can write off 25 grand. So I wrote it off, and thankfully Hiscox were willing to step in and to cover the cost element of that. So they ended up paying me 10 grand out of that 25 grand, which is not the full amount, but was a massive relief for me. But the thing that was actually screwed up, it was just the way it just literally ruined my life for like 3 months, you know, because here's a massive company threatening to sue me for £1.5 million of damages. We didn't have the cash. I've never had a legal battle in my entire life. I don't know what the hell I'm doing, you know?
Yeah. No, absolutely. It sounds like it sounds like an incredibly stressful period. So first of all, congratulations on coming out the other side.
Yeah, well, technically they still can. So, you know, I have no problems with them or their industry. It all worked out fine, but you know.
Yeah.
Limitations. I've still got 2 years on it, but
yeah. No, absolutely. Well, I presume that they're perhaps, with another agency, hopefully not doing something similar. So I want to use that as an opportunity to first. So I see a couple of questions in here. Chris, Anand, Dave, we're going to come to your questions. But I want to wrap this up by seeing if we can pull a learning out from this. Knowing that that's happened historically, what is your advice for anyone who's working with a company that effectively refuses to pay their bills? What would you do, or what have you done now differently in terms of upfront to make sure that doesn't happen, as well as at the back end in the instance it does, still happen?
Whenever we take on a corporate client now, I do a bit of due diligence in that I actually get to know who the last agency was. Yeah, I speak to that agency owner and ask him what it was like. That's the only real thing. Other than that, you should have professional indemnity insurance in place, and then. Yeah, that's the only two practical things you can do.
Great. So, guys, find out who the old agency was in the instance that you're told, or you can figure it out and have a chat with them. Find out what it was like. And the second element of it is get some professional indemnity insurance. Ultimately, to cover any probability or possibility of bad debt. And interestingly enough, we worked quick tidbit. we got onboarded with a company who were in the site builder space, so competitor to like Wix, Weebly type of stuff. And we were onboarded as part of an email in which they fired the other agency on the email with our entire company. And that was like day 5 of our actual campaign together, which scared the living daylights out of me when they're like, we're letting you go. So I've had a small touch of some of those experiences, and it sounds like wise advice. So Pete, I want to go into some of these questions. So the first thing, so Anand, your question has been answered. That it sounds like you do contract-based services. Do you ever do any deals absent a contract?
No, never. That's the main. Never. I'd never do a deal absent a contract. I did that in my first year. I did it. I wanted to get any penny in the door. The second in which I got my first bad debt client, it was contract there on there out.
Okay, perfect. And then talking of the question of that 3-month period where they didn't pay their bills, basically, I think that David Shuloff asked a really good question, which relates to this ultimately. Like, how do you deal with cash flow and building of debt in areas where you've got full-time employees, you've got a client who's not paying, you've got COVID-19 coming down on you? How are you managing ultimately your cash flow and some of the decisions within your business when you come across these challenges?
Yeah, I mean, there's some basics first. We used to have like 30-day terms and invoices. I've seen that no clients are paying it until about 2 weeks after those 30 days. So I just half the invoice terms to either immediate or 40 days. Yeah. And there's a lot of guilt when you first do that, but you know what? It doubled our cash flow rate doubled the second we did it. People pay invoices when they're due. They do not pay them early. Some small medium business owners do, and honestly, thanks to them. But most procurement teams don't even look at it until it's due. It's Maxwell accepts his 30-day invoice terms, but 90% of our clients want 14-day turnaround. Forecasting bad debt. Hey, I mean, I learned this early on. My accountant said you should always have 2 months of running costs in your business, ready to go. I have a little bank account which has 2 months of our running costs there to break in case of emergency, and it's been a massive lifeline in the past couple of months for us in the Corona cycle. I know that doesn't help right now, but you have to,
Okay. No, it makes perfect sense. So guys, the outcomes are there. The payment terms, if you're on a 30-day payment, expect them to pay at 45 days. Therefore, have an invoice period of 14 days or even immediately if it's possible, but they'll probably, do it within the 30 days or the 14 days. That's been amazing. Second element of it is figure out your running costs for an 8-week period, whether that's 550, 250 grand, whatever that may be, and have that in a bank that is locked away, right? So you don't touch that cash. Is that correct? Under any circumstance. Okay.
Well,
Brilliant.
I mean, I've used it a little bit for currently, yeah. I guess the third quick one is that we are quite pragmatic with our clients. I'll happily go to a client, you're 14 days behind your bill, you pay them this week, or we're stopping work,
You
got to be that direct up front. You can't, being shy, they're not going to pay it,
Don't be afraid, guys. Don't be afraid to, to tell them what's necessary. So for those who are just joining us, Tom, how are you doing, buddy? Tom, we've got Nathan. Hello, Nathan, as well as
Kaizen. So
okay, good man. So for those of you who've just joined, please do like the channel. Please do subscribe. Please do write in the comments your name, where you're from, what you do, of course, for a living. I'm presuming you're in, of course, at least the digital marketing space, but probably the SEO space. And as well, after that, I'd love to get like 2 questions from you. I'm sure you can think of 2 questions. You know what this webinar is about. And we have just been dealing with clients who refuse to pay bills. And on that note, I want to go on to the second element, which I know that some of you probably tuned in for. I know that I wanted to hear about this. So this is a super unusual one, but perhaps, well, I'd just like you to take us through it, I guess, really, Pete. So, so of course, it's talking about, you guys being a victim of criminals targeting your agency. So the same again, we'd love to hear the story and just to talk us through what happened.
Sure.
Hey, Alex, I like that.
Their employee. This is where my employees get scared by the truth, but it's all fine. So social engineering runs rampant, which I always thought were just simple email phishing scams. Log in here, sir, and you win £1 million. But actually, there's a level of sophistication to this now that exists that took me by surprise. And I'd like to think I'm a pretty nerdy guy. So essentially, I regularly tweet my bank. I don't now. I did regularly tweet my bank going, oh, hey, this doesn't work or that doesn't work, which is, a standard thing to do. Even last month, I seen 2 agency owners tweet out, oh, who do you recommend for banking? And then loads of people reply who they bank with,
Yeah.
And essentially then you have got a list of business owners and who they're banking with,
Okay. Yeah.
So that's the starting prospect list. So in my instance, it actually happened to an agency friend of mine as well. Essentially, a person will pose to be a bank employee, but instead of trying to get a hold of me, they'll try and get a hold of a low-level employee.
Okay.
So they'll go, oh, hi, Steve. It's Tom from, this isn't the bank. I'm just going to pick a bank. Hi, it's Tom from HSBC here. I've seen that Pete did a tweet saying that he's having a problem with his Apple Pay. And I just wanted to reach out to see if I could resolve that issue. If you can give me a call back, here's my name and number. So then an employee I trust will hand me a post-it note and say, like, Tom from the bank has called, here's the number, which is what happened. I ignored it. And then I get another call back and my employee goes, oh, it's so-and-so on the bank again for you, and I'm like, oh, okay. And they go me through and it goes, yeah, I seen your tweet. You said you were worried about Apple Pay, because we've disabled it on the account, but we're actually opening up a new corporate banking facility, which is a true thing. They were actually opening up a new corporate banking facility where Apple Pay would be available as a function, So it was a lie told with the truth.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
This is crazy sophisticated.
Yeah. And this is the thing. It happens right. Like today, I had a call from our current banking provider, legit phone call saying, hi, we wanted to see how you're doing in the coronavirus. And we've got all these payment offers there, It's not unusual for your bank to call you, It's so for me, I'm hook, line and sinker with this, really. They basically said that they could change the online bank account to effectively reinstate the Apple Pay function on the corporate banking. And, and before I moved any further, I did my homework, I Googled it, and I seen, great, okay, Apple Pay is available on the corporate banking functionality. This is all legit. I looked at the bank employee's name. I seen their LinkedIn profile. I seen their name on there as well. So they were using a real bank employee's name alongside information they gathered me by scraping Twitter effectively. And essentially what they then did is they had to say, to move forward to this, we have to verify it through security,
Yeah.
So they asked me a secret question, which I answer. And the same secret set of secret questions that the bank was usually asking me. And essentially what they do, okay, thanks, we'll call you back. And then when they call you back for a second time, they extract more of the characters of the password. They call you back for a third time, they extract more characters of the password, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So
on and so forth until they have a complete login, essentially, for both a username and a password that they could use to reset the online bank account. So in the case of this bank, you're able to reset the online functionality with no secondary authentication. It's just like, I don't know, resetting a, like your MailChimp account. Yeah, that's simple,
Yeah.
So they did that, and then essentially they attempted to take up to £50,000 of the bank account by funneling off payments of $2,000-3,000 off to a series of 25 bank accounts. And after about the 10th one, my banking provider noticed it and then called me to go, well, actually, $50,000 has left your bank account, and we want to know if the payments are suspicious or not. So then it became like a quiz, because it then became an instance of me versus the bank, of the bank trying to prove, because basically banks have a legal obligation to stand by customers if they're a victim of fraud.
Okay,
but like any refund policy, they will try up their hardest to get out of it, if that makes sense,
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I mean, regardless of that, the big thing for me was the shock of, I'm at home on a Friday night, I just had my dinner, and I get a call that says that $50,000 has left your bank account, And then I literally didn't sleep for 3 days,
Yeah.
$50,000. Yeah. It's the most amount of money that I've ever heard of being taken out of a bank account my entire life,
I think you hold a record, Mr. Pete Campbell.
I mean, I was paying myself maybe $30,000 a year at the time, that was a whole year's salary.
When was that? What year was that in?
3 years ago now.
Okay. I mean, that's a pretty incredible story, and you were able to, I believe, get some of the money back in the end from the bank.
Yeah, so it became a bit of. I actually ended up turning it into a bit of a PR strategy. So I ended up looking at how that bank in particular had been cited several times in the press over their poor online banking security.
Okay.
And as a result of that, essentially, I built a dossier of all the ways in which someone could legitimately log into the account that was a flaw of their security.
Okay.
And because I produced that dossier and then presented it to them, They then essentially went away and said, okay, we'll think about it. Then they realized the liability was on them, and they chose on Christmas Eve to call me and say they're going to give me the money back. So I went from the worst week of my life to the best Christmas present that I've ever had.
Pete, what a crazy journey you've been on, my friend. Christ.
Yeah, it was honestly, it ruined my life. I was in tears. I was so depressed. My wife said she had never seen me like ever look like that. I didn't talk all week. I just didn't know how to move. I was numb because I was just embarrassed. It was just so embarrassing for someone that runs an internet marketing agency to say that essentially hackers have attacked them as a result of bank fraud. How embarrassing is that? You'd like to think yourself as a pretty legit guy because you're used to people like old ladies getting called and having $2,000 taken out of their bank account.
Of course.
Now when I still see agency owners tweet out who they bank with, I literally jump under DMs and I'm like, delete those tweets now, because you don't realize that it happens through 6 layers of sophistication.
Guys, so if you've got a public persona or you're in the process of building one, then do be mindful of the public information you put out about yourself, because especially when it comes to sensitive information, I guess, be very public about having, for example, I said I'd get her in here, a cat. That you keep, be very public about stuff like that, but not that's Jenny, by the way. You'll be seeing her once every time we're on these webinars.
You were telling me that Jenny.
Pete, we've lost you, my friend. Oh no, you're back. You're back. Sorry, no.
Here we are.
We're back. Sorry, you were telling me that Jenny.
I thought you were going to say that you told me that Jenny would be asking all the questions.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, guys. So Jenny is going to be. Hold on. Let me see if I can wake her up. She's very not happy right now. She's not into the content. She doesn't like content on anything. She is less of a fan of your conversation than I am, my friend. So I'm gonna let her off, and I'm gonna bring it back. So guys who've been patiently asking questions in the audience, we're gonna storm through a couple of quick questions, some questions that we've got right now that I think are really super interesting. So Tyler, welcome Tyler. I'd love to hear where you're from in the world, Tyler, as well as what you do for a living. That'd be brilliant. But yeah, Tyler Tefelsky asks, Pete, could you speak to ultimately the PR side of your business? So I'd love to get your kind of 2-minute insight into, you're an SEO agency, you offer PR. Ross Tavendale, who's we come on every couple of weeks. Yeah, exactly. So he's got a big PR side of his business as well. So what's your answer to that question about, digital PR and how it fits in within the SEO space?
Yeah, so all of our clients are SEO managers or are taking on for SEO services. It's just that the vast majority, 90% of the work that we deliver for them is link building, effectively. And the reason why we have a standout in the market is experience. It's a crap answer. It doesn't really help you, but I think for me, because I had that background in developing websites about things that I like, I used to post content on video games, post content on The Simpsons. I did freelance journalism while I was a student. It gave me an understanding of the news, and it gave me an understanding of what qualifies as news, basically. And from that, my starting place is I used to just write BuzzFeed style listicles, 10 things you didn't know about X. And then essentially I was able to get them placed on 1 or 2 key sites in a particular sector as a form of link building, really. And from that, I just seen that was the work that our clients are most predominantly interested in. And as a result of that, it's where I made all of my investment. We took on an in-house designer, we took on in-house writers, and we focused on hiring people who had freelance journalism or PR interests as a result, And in PR, people buy people. The only reason we get more PR clients is because I can stand there and go, oh yeah, compare the market. I used to do the PR for Money Supermarket, so on and so forth. It's very portfolio based, I guess, a bit like a designer,
Okay, guys. So, I mean, listen, I think that makes a lot of sense. That fundamentally, agencies your clients are paying you for things. Tyler, good man, Michigan, search-based, captivate search marketing, and yes, the Iron Man shirt. I'm glad that you enjoyed that. Again, Jenny doesn't give 2 SHITSs, but I'm happy that you care. So guys, I think the outcome there is, do the things that clients have a perception of not being able to do themselves, about the things that, they want done for them. And it sounds like Pete has built upon something that was, a pre-existing skill set and a little bit like the Steve Jobs-esque thing. It sounded a little bit like the dots did connect, that you did it at that time with no intent of building Kaizen, but that's how.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, that's the paralysis that I have. The opposite paralysis now. Now I don't know how to move forward, because now I've got to plan out how we grow our business. Before it's just in reaction to everything. But yeah, it's that. I think, and if you don't have those skills, I guess you want to build them in. I think look for students with freelance journalism experience, that way you can get it at low cost. They have connections in a certain sector already, and you can piggyback upon that to get the first few digital PR links for your clients effectively.
Okay, no, perfect.
So, someone's baking a lovely lasagna in the background there.
You know what? That's my partner is making her lunch right now. I didn't realize, guys. That's what happens in the Corona crisis. That you get the microwave going off in the background, and you're like, darn it.
Well, I did a webinar recently, and the door popped open, and I thought it was my partner, but it was actually my robot vacuum just surfing on in. It was so goddamn noisy. I had to literally leave the screen.
We've just got one of those things, and that is something that Jenny does wake up for. And it's funny that you said, does someone put the microwave on? I was thinking, what? I was like, Anton, how dare you put the microwave on? But actually, it's me. So guys, we're coming into the last 15 minutes, and what I want to do is I want Pete to talk about the final kind of list of things that we had to discuss, and then we will go through, and that's the alarm for the microwave that's gone off. Then we will go through and make sure that we get a lot of your questions answered. So please go ahead and keep asking the questions that you've got here. And Pete, you spoke about the issue, the challenge you had with the bank. You've spoken about, of course, the challenges with hiring, as well as clients that refuse to pay. I mean, it sounds like it's been a difficult and often lonely journey. And you mentioned a couple of times that you've had, several moments within the business where you struggled. Could you talk a little bit about, first of all, the challenges of being a solo agency owner, as well as how you have overcome some of those challenges that you faced?
I mean, it is solo agency owner is incredibly lonely, because if you get to grow and you take on employees, there's just certain things which just aren't appropriate to share. Some of the things that I shared today are now happened years ago, so it doesn't really affect the here and now. But even in the past couple of weeks, where we had to make decisions about shoring up our short-term cash flow by thinking about, do we ask a couple of employees to leave the business, or do we furlough them? They're incredibly sensitive and private conversations that need to be done in respect of those involved. And you carry that weight with you wherever you go. And it's horrible, because I wish 6 years ago, I have a managing director now, Jeremy, and we're very different characters, but by just having another person just to bounce that off, it makes it incredibly a lot easier to handle. And honestly, it's my wife has been the bear of all of my problems the past 6 years, and she's been incredible through it, because oh my god, I don't shut up about work, and the ways in which I've tried to overcome it. I've joined, I've on and off, I've joined a couple of sort of like agency owner networking groups. There's one called the Agency Collective that's pretty good. And I've went to a few sort of agency owner networking events, and often where I get the most therapy is things like this, like me talking to you, by just being able to be transparent about it and getting out there and put it away, so that other people can learn from my mistakes. But also when I'm also hearing it as well, and things like the Agency Collective, for example, by just hearing, like I seen Social Chain, the huge growth social media agency. I seen one of the co-founders do a talk about essentially when he was thinking of committing suicide. Wow. And for me, that was incredibly powerful, because it made me realize about how, business owners, I mean, look, I've got a successful business. We've made good money. I've got a lovely flat. I've got a lovely life. But I also still do have serious emotional drain and problems that you get self-contained, because you can't share them in an authentic way with someone.
Yeah.
And just hearing other people say that you are going to go through shit stuff that compensates for it's the most creative, fulfilling thing I've ever done. I've no regret doing it. But and every time, unfortunately, every time that I take a beating, I learn from the beating. And most of it is onset by finances. That's my biggest worry. Whenever I see the graph doing down like that, my whole world falls apart. and I go into this like silent Siri style mode where I only respond to questions given, and I can only ever see the solution when then a series of nice things start to happen, you know. But yeah,
it sounds like it's been an incredible journey. You know, as Paul was saying that. Paul has said two things. Paul Lavelle, he said, first of all, that he followed, first of all, the same journey. I think back up at the top, he said that his journey started with web design. And then from there, he said, first of all, he said, afternoon, gentlemen. I'm trying to find it, guys, if you're wondering what I'm looking at in the live chat. I've got a scroller here just looking through it. But Anton, you are a wizard on the buttons. And then he said, let's see if you can find this before I find it, Anton.
It was sick of clients making changes to websites. I think that's what it was.
Oh, my God, you guys both beat me. So Paul was also starting web design, got sick and tired of SEOs asking for changes. And then now he said that that his wife must know everything about SEO. So guys, you two have a total bromance over live chat and live
video.
Brother. So I want to I guess what I want to ask is you know, within that, as we come into the last 10 minutes, and guys, please keep your questions coming in. What I'm going to do is do a quick fire question answer with Pete over the last couple of minutes. But I'll get him to answer as shortly and as concisely as he can. So we're still going to go through a lot of the questions that you've got. So I wanted to just ask, what would you say are the couple of biggest pieces of advice you'd have for solo agency owners who experience loneliness, depression, burnout, overwhelm, fear, anxiety, self-doubt? What would you say to that in terms of questions? I
mean, you got to express those problems somehow, you know, whether that is through a close friend or family member, or you join a networking group, just so that you can it's cathartic just actually getting the words out there, and just having someone, I've been there too, and giving you their perspective just makes you think that, you know, there is a sense of we're all in it together. And the SEO industry is brilliant for that. Unfortunately, in my case, you know, it's all agencies are also still competitors against each other. So then when I ring up and I by mistake I get in front of their clients, it's sort of like it ends in two ways. But I mean, that's talking about it with them, and then when you're comfortable, talking about it with your team as well. You know, there tends to be like an onset of delay factors for me. You know, so I will share stuff with the team, but I'll usually like leave like a statute of limitations of like a year between bad shit happening now to doing it. Because I used to go through the other way. I remember a couple of years ago, I stood up in front of the whole agency and I said, look, guys, our revenue is going down. We've got 3 months to solve this, or I don't know what the future look like. Now, I can handle that, but the younger folks in your business can't, because of the fact that they obviously just want a safe and stable security in their job. But the reality is, I think every agency is about 6 months from going out of business. You know, we're an agency, we're reliant on retainers and recurring revenue streams. The only things you can do to offset that is having cash in the bank. And that's the other thing that's been really cathartic for me, is that I visualize what's the worst thing that's going to happen out of this process. At this point, the worst thing that's going to happen, hopefully, is I end up as a managing director at another agency, and I'm finally making a decent wage. You know, that's the worst thing. And then finally, I'll have a work-life balance again. You know, that's the worst thing that's going to happen, is that I'm going to end up in a cushy job. You know, that's it. And I just try and remind myself of that. And then after that, it's just embarrassment. Obviously, no one wants to. You know, I've had it great for 6 years. If Kaizen had to shut down next year, not that I think that would ever happen, but if it came to that point, it's at a point now I know that if I did that, I would have gave every single bloody inch possible to make it a success, what I did. And the journey so far has been incredible, so that I have no regrets, is it? You know, and a lot of businesses do fail. You know, it's just... Look,
Pete, I think it's absolutely an amazing takeaway and insight into how to deal with a lot of the challenges. And we've not spoken, I've not spoken about these specific issues with anyone as we've been going through this series about how to start and scale an SEO agency. So, you know, thank you for your insights on coping with loneliness, guys. If you've got other agency owners, do connect, communicate, and share with them as to, you know, the challenges that you've got. The second element that Pete spoke about is that within that, I think that, you know, it sounds like his partner, his wife, has been a huge mainstay. So also have, you know, someone that you're close to, you know, that you can share the trials and tribulations with. And that third element, it says that, you know, it sounds like, you know, for Pete, he's also happy with, you know, where he's got. So it sounds like there's, you know, having a true sense of goals is really a big thing. So, you know, Pete, thank you for all of that, all of those amazing insights. And
no problem.
on that note, we've got 6 minutes. I'm going to storm through the questions. We're going to go through them one by one. Let's just give the shortest answers that you can. Okay. First thing is, let's start with Tirupati is asking. So Tirupati from Pune is asking, currently we're freelancing. Should I get proposals or contracts that my clients ask me to sign, or agreements reviewed by legal experts? What do you think? Should we do that or should we not do that? When a client says, look, we've got this big statement of terms to sign off on, could you sign off on it?
I don't do it, but at the same time, I'd like to think I'm well educated on client contracts. That's the problem. It's what I would say is that you should get a client contract drawn up by a marketing specialist legal firm, and then run the first couple by them, and then just use them for weird exclusion clauses. You know, that way you can do it, limit your costs.
Okay, perfect, brilliant. So that's the first answer to the first question, guys. Pete doesn't now, but because he's been journeyed, ask a firm who specializes to build a contract for you, perhaps get it checked out a couple of times, then off you go. We'll move on to 33 Big Money. So 30, I love the name, by the way, 33 Big Money. He is asking, or she is asking, I think it's a he looking at the picture. Brilliant. So
it's Nicolas Cage looking at the picture.
Yeah. So look, you've left an agency. Can you use your previous employer's case studies as your case studies or not?
Your employee contract probably says you couldn't, but I'd be lying if I said that I haven't, and we do it quite a bit. You'd be mad not to. That's the first place you start. My first clients are all, and I name dropped. So I used to work on British Gas and what have you. It's what unlocked the door for us to work with a client like npower, which is a previous client of ours. You have to.
Okay, perfect. So Jeannie Hill now asks, what is the contract length that you seek, or do you ever go month by month? What is your typical contract in a nutshell?
Sure. Yeah. So we actually go by minimum project value. So we won't take on a project value less than £21,000. And then that contract length is ideally 3 months, but we'll take it over 6. And then after that, we have either month by month contracts, or it renews on the same sort of terms. So we think of it as like, what amount of money do we need to make in order to make a good profit?
Okay, perfect. So there you go, guys. It's driven by contract value, and then you figure out what your return is in terms of basically profit, and as a consequence, you can roll out what that means in terms of months. So figure it out based upon contract value first. Talking of contracts, not Jeannie Hill, rather Catherine. So Jeannie, sorry, I saw it. The same question come up twice. I beg your pardon. Catherine Van Vono. I'd love to know where you're from, Catherine. You've got an amazing surname, so please do tell us where you're from. How do you handle clients who are trying to hire your staff?
It actually hasn't happened yet, but I'm sure it will. But when they do, they'll find that there's a clause in the contract that we have the client that says they can't do it for the first while we're working with them, or for 12 months afterwards. Yeah. So it forms part of our client contracts.
Perfect. Okay, that makes sense. It makes sense. MPH Marketing Solutions got a really good question. What do you do with so MPH Marketing Solutions, Anton, if you're wondering, he says he's got a web design client, but really this is a question for everybody. What do you do when a client pays 50% and then you deliver the work and then they don't pay the balance? How do you deal with that, or they stall?
It sounds to me like they're just trying to just get out of the contract regardless. That's the thing. I think it's my initial approach would be I do 1 or 2 iterations to see, does that actually, well, first we have a feedback tracker. We get a defined list of the specific things that you want wrong. Yep. Do you want it in blue? Do you want it in red? If they don't proceed past that, then I assume that they're just trying to wiggle out of it, and they're threatening to sue, but they won't. It's not worth the legal cost. For a website, it's probably a couple of grand, right? Yeah. The legal cost is going to cost them 20,000. So I think it just sounds to me like they're just trying. It's annoying, and they're probably not going to pay you the other half. But yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Take what you got.
So with that, then I think that answers your other questions. MPH Marketing Solutions, which was, have you ever taken a client to court, Pete, due to lack of payment?
No, it's the legal costs are too much versus the gain. And then the headache, it takes years.
Okay, no, perfect. Makes complete sense. So guys, we're coming up to the last minute. I'm going to take 3 more questions. I'm going to see how quickly Pete can answer them. So question number 1 from Chris Everett is, so Chris, this is a good question. So Chris basically has legacy clients on legacy rates. How have you approached asking them for more money, basically?
Yeah, I mean, the most pragmatic way that we did it when we decided to up our minimum retainer fee is that I was transparent with the client that essentially that we're looking to essentially take on larger clients as a result of that retainer fee. If that client is still fairly profitable for me, then I'll grandfather them on the old rate. Why would I necessarily charge them more when I'm making the profit goal that I wanted? So that'd be the first thing I check. I've got a minute. And then if needs be, refer them to another agency and ask that other agency could get a kickback for doing it. That's it.
Perfect. Okay, guys. So be honest. Keep them on the same rate if possible. If you can't, send them to another agency, get a kickback. There you go.
Yeah.
So Brian, fantastic, sir. Brian from Silver Spring. I'm not sure what MD stands for, but you'll tell me, Brian. I'm sure you will. You're avid on the chat. What did it take you to be able to bring on a managing director? Because that do they do billable work to help offset their salary? So he's asking about the whole managing director scenario.
Yeah, so our revenue was at 1.2 million when we did this, and my manager director Jeremy works on our largest clients. Okay.
So the short answer is that you've got to have enough revenue to do it properly, to incentivize them, and then Jeremy is now working on the largest clients. So for that point, it makes sense. So guys, I've got one. Maryland, there you go. I knew you'd be fast on the keyboard, Brian. So chaps, we've got one more question that I'm going to take. Let me have a scroll and see what else that we've got here. And I think, to be honest with you,
I think you smashed it, mate.
Here we go. Brilliant. So no. We've got one more question. Paul Kelsall. Right. Paul, you may have already told us, amigo, where you're from, but please do tell me again because I maybe missed it. So this is a good question. Paul Kelsall asks, Anton, if you can find it before I read it out. Anton, you're too good, man. he asks, look, the portfolio approach, how do you handle the conflict of interest issue that comes up then? If someone says, well, you've worked on, what do you do?
I mean, we continue to work with the competitors. That's it. We can only be honest with them. We can say we work with these. Do you want to work with us or not? I mean, if I work for Pepsi, I'd want to hire Coca-Cola's agency. At the end of the day, you can't guarantee the 1 or 2 spot. It's about the approach. So
let me ask a follow-up question to that. How many have you had periods where you've worked for a portfolio of companies in the same space that are direct competitors?
Yes.
Okay. And they've known about it?
Yeah, they know. There was one instance where they didn't, and they weren't happy about it. But we'd already gave them the heads up a year and a half in advance that we were going to be potentially working with competitors in their space. And to do that, we put in place a separate team. We locked down the files and the folders. And the two teams had no idea what the day-to-day workflow was. So I was pragmatic as possible. But it's the choice of the client at the end of the day. It's cultural. Some clients care, some don't.
Guys, listen, it makes perfect sense. So everybody, before you go, please do. We've got a mega webinar coming up. It's called the 5 hours of content marketing. Anton, if you could drop it into the comments, if people are wondering, what am I talking about? It's going to be 5 hours dedicated to content marketing. It's been a huge part of how Pete has, of course, grown by the content he's produced that then he's got placed into various publications. So please do make sure you tune into that. Anton will leave a comment in YouTube. And finally, Pete, thank you so much, buddy.
No problem, mate. I enjoyed it.
For the amazing answers, dude. And everybody, thank you for tuning in. Paul, we know you're from Leeds now, so thank you for that, my friend. And to everybody else, please do keep tuning in. Follow Pete Reis-Campbell. Follow myself, and we will catch you, as they say, on the flip side. See ya.
Bye.